This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Straczynski. On today's show, we're going to break down what's going on with WWE on our build to Crown Jewel. Of course, we've got AEW. Going to be taking a look. Vince is officially out. We've got the lowdown on what's going on with WWE and their creative, as well as this big-time wrestling promotion changing its name, going back to a little bit of history, a little bit of nostalgia, and maybe CM Punk shows up there. We're going to talk about all of it. We're going to get into it a little bit later on in the show. Right now, I'm going to introduce the one, the only. He is the guy. He's my guy. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Rightfully sitting at the head of the table where I belong, I am the Doc, baby. I'm looking forward to it. Man, SmackDown was good, highlighted by the opening segment, which I thought was well done, well crafted, instantly making LA Knight credible. I just wish I could believe he could win. I just wish I could believe that at Crown Jewel 1, 2, 3, kind of want to write a letter to the overseas Saudi ministry and be like, look, pay the extra $15 million and just tell them, look, we'll give you $15 million if you let LA Knight win 1, 2, 3. It'd be a special moment. It'd be crazy. But, man, the build has been good. WWE has done such a good job. And AEW has done a good job now establishing a legend on his way out. And the shock of the year happened on Dynamite. So this is a good week, man. I can't wait to break it all down. Let's go. Let's kick this baby off.
Yeah, it was a good week. And you know what? You brought up SmackDown, so let's just stick there. Let's start there. Look, I think the confidence that you're seeing from LA Knight is championship worthy. Very similar to what you're saying. This is a guy who looks like he fits the part, looks like he fits the bill. Him in the ring with Roman Reigns, he does not look out of place. He does not look like he's questioning his move. The thing that early on, he would sometimes flub a line, sometimes stumble in a promo. He would get right back on it, and it wasn't a big deal, but there was usually this little misstep. I think what you're seeing right now is an extremely confident LA Knight who knows exactly what he's going to say. He's going against primetime players, a guy like Paul Heyman, a guy like Roman Reigns. He's in the biggest spotlight. Him walking down to the ring on Friday night, cutting off Roman Reigns' entrance music, and then sitting himself at the head of the table, I thought was such a gangster move. I think at this moment in time, LA Knight is operating on a completely different level. And to what you're saying, it's really unfair because nobody believes he's going to win when he goes to Saudi Arabia for Crown Jewel. Nobody is buying the fact that he is a legit obstacle for Roman Reigns. And I think that is arguably the biggest misstep with where he's at on his build and on his rise right now. What are you noticing about LA Knight that has been so special? And how is it so unfortunate that he just isn't believable to beat Roman Reigns?
Well, the reason why it's not believable is that he just now has entered the main event picture. So in the end, he's the way it's been booked, he's been an upper mid-card guy, a guy that's gotten the opportunity now to get the pops and to have good opportunities. And once he started his run after NXT, he hasn't had the matches like against the other main event guys like Seth Rollins, like Kevin Owens, like Sami Zayn. He's been working the mid-card. So now, typically it doesn't work like that, you know. It's kind of like the Austin run where he had an opportunity, lost a couple times, and he kind of worked his way up. So now, LA Knight's main event, and that's what we expected when we heard the news that he was going to get a big push. This is it. The reason is that Roman Reigns is the head of the table of a company that's printing money and making a shit ton of it, traveling the world, and he's not even there. So the company has to look at it from that perspective. And now this is a match people want to see. And the thing that people always say in wrestling is the money's in the chase. So the way in which you do this is you got to find the best creative angle so that LA Knight loses, but gets screwed so that people can get behind him. This is the Bryan Danielson recipe here, and it's going to go down exactly like that in Riyadh. I think that somebody's going to come out, maybe a debut. The way I would do it is just have The Rock come out and support Roman Reigns and start that beginning of that angle. And then, LA Knight's about to win. The Rock comes out, helps save his cousin, and do his thing. And then you move forward, and then you see Roman Reigns make a home run play, or you debut somebody else, or you do something different. But LA Knight's getting screwed, baby, and the world's going to support him, and he's going to continue his chase. He's going to be a world champion one day. It has the feel, as long as he can continue his main event run. And boy, you can carry Roman Reigns versus LA Knight for a long time.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. At some point during this match, something's going to happen. Maybe they introduce a new member of the Bloodline, and that's kind of how they strengthen that core, and they kind of reestablish whatever this long storyline is with the Bloodline. But I think he has done an awesome job getting himself over. I think the fans obviously behind him. Friday night, that crowd was incredibly loud, incredibly noisy, letting their feelings be heard about where they stand with LA Knight. I think it's been a fantastic ride. It just is unfortunate kind of where it times up. And look, I wish it was another way. I wish going in, it was going to be one of those things where we all believed he was the guy who was going to get the job done, but I just don't see it. And to me, it's a little bit unfortunate. I think with a lot of WWE programming this week, it was the foundational show. Next week's the go-home show for Crown Jewel. I feel like this week just kind of set stuff in place for hitting it out of the park next week. And I really feel like SmackDown really built around the Bloodline, specifically LA Knight, and then John Cena. It was announced John Cena is going to be taking on Solo Sikoa. They had a little bit of an interaction. For you, John Cena, Solo Sikoa. Look, John Cena keeps coming out and talking about how he hasn't won. He's been very, very upfront about the fact that he hasn't been able to win a match in a long time. And to me, it feels like it is setting up for John Cena to possibly get a win when they go over to Saudi Arabia, which to me is a weird spot, because his job at this point in his career is to come back and really help establish other guys, help get other guys over. And they've done such a good job of protecting Solo Sikoa. Solo Sikoa has felt like he is the guy. Does John Cena get a win? Does it feel like John Cena is going to get the win when they go to Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia? Or do you think he comes in and does his job and puts Solo over?
Man, I don't think Solo needs it. I think John Cena should get the win, but either way, it's going to be great. I think it's a perfect matchup, a young gun versus a veteran. See, here's the thing. You're going to have Roman win, so that's going to be a bloodline situation. You got to see. I mean, that's the job of John Cena, is to make Solo look good. Solo's an up-and-comer. I don't think that it hurts Solo at all to take the loss, and I think it's an opportunity for the crowd to pop. So let's go.
Yeah, look, I don't think it hurts Solo either. I think they've done a really good job of establishing him. It's just one of those things where John Cena has really, really been drilling this and mailing this home. So I think this is going to be the angle that they take for this story, and it's going to be interesting to kind of see how it plays out. Let's transition over to what took place on Monday night with Monday Night Raw. To me, at some point, you're going to have to do something with this guy. It really is starting to feel like you've either got to shit or get off the pot. Is it time for Damien Priest's championship run? Is it time for him to cash in that briefcase against a guy like Seth Rollins and take that title off of him? Where are you at with Damien Priest? Because I do not believe Damien Priest is anywhere in the window of challenging Roman Reigns. I think if you're going to cash in this briefcase, you're not doing it for a smaller title, especially not with Damien Priest. You're doing it for one of the big two. And so that really only leaves Seth Rollins. Does Damien Priest cash in at Crown Jewel? Do we get a title change there? Or is this one of those things where they're going to have to pull the trigger sooner than later?
No, I think you keep it. I don't think the crazy part is that also on the other side, Seth Rollins is a worthy champion too. Feels like Damien Priest needs to be bigger. You know what I mean? It feels like that he's got to do more to be at the level to take a title off of Seth Rollins. So right now, it's crazy in that Damien Priest is the top heel. He's a guy that people like, and I probably do believe it will be him, but I just think he needs more. He needs more work, needs more wins, needs more opportunities, and I think that maybe you do it at the Rumble. Maybe you drag this out where he cashes it in and fails, but then gets more pissed and handles his business and eventually gets his opportunity. But man, he's the guy, and I see the up and coming nature of what he brings to the table. You see it. It's just not there yet. It feels like timing, and I just think that Seth Rollins could make the title even more prestigious by holding it a nice long time. I can't wait to see the chase, man. I think it's going to be entertaining.
See, I kind of disagree with you. I think at some point you've got to pull this trigger, and it's got to be sometime soon. I think you've done a really nice job of establishing Seth Rollins, establishing his back being an issue. I think if you're going to do it, it probably is this upcoming weekend where at Crown Jewel. I think he's in for a hell of a match against Drew McIntyre. I think Drew McIntyre can come in, do the heavy work, wear down Seth Rollins. That could lead to Damien Priest cashing in that briefcase. And I think what happens is now you have an interesting story because you've done a good job of weaving the bloodline into this entire scene with Drew McIntyre and then trying to weave the Judgment Day into the storyline with Seth Rollins. There's been different angles and different approaches that have been taken with both. So I think this would be the time to do it. And look, Drew McIntyre, with his slow heel turn, I think has been enjoyable. I think this has been fantastic. I want to get your thoughts on where we're at with Drew McIntyre, where we're at with his heel turn, because I think, look, Drew McIntyre just doesn't show up to do things. Drew McIntyre has to have a purpose. This has been part of the reason why Drew McIntyre was out for so long. It wasn't just an injury. It was the fact that creative wanted him to go heel, and he was like, I'm not just turning heel to go heel. Like, we've got to have some motivation. We've got to have something going on. And I think what you're seeing is just the slow burn of Drew McIntyre. And I think what pushes him over the edge is probably this loss to Seth Rollins, taking Seth Rollins to the limit and then losing on one of the bigger stages that WWE puts on at Crown Jewel, only to see a guy like Damien Priest show up and cash in and then get that championship belt. And I think that is where the heel turn really kicks into overdrive. And maybe this is where Damien Priest ends up leaving the Judgment Day. Maybe Damien Priest head gets a little bit big, and I think you can work a couple of stories coming out of this pay-per-view where you can really pick things up on that following Monday. What are your thoughts on Drew McIntyre's slow burn heel turn?
It's been good. I think that this is an angle and a program he can get into. I think that that's something that he needs. He needs a little bit of a change. Man, but the part for me that I probably don't like is the entire talk of, I wasn't a champion, or I wasn't a revered champion, and all the talk from the announcers of, well, he wanted a title and there was nobody there. They're bringing that angle back up. So
the whole thing with COVID is kind of getting old.
Yeah, I don't want to go back to that. Like, I want to look forward. I want to know your burning desire to be champion, knowing that you're the best. I think that's the best angle for Drew McIntyre is, look, I'm the head, not I'm the head of the table, but I'm the big dog in this yard, and I need to be a guy that gets back to where I thought that the best, which was crazy, which I'm not sure how I feel about. I thought the best that Drew looked was when Seth was ripping on him. You know what I mean? When he was saying that you've always had your opportunities, but never really been a winner. And I just thought that you kind of felt for Drew a little bit without him having to say, I was a victim of the circumstances. So I just think that his work with Seth, again, that's what a 5-tool player does, is you got a guy like Seth who, whatever program you put him in, makes the dude bigger, and they can jump off and do their thing. So this is going to be great. I can't wait to see what kind of heel tactics Drew deploys.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see what takes place in this match. Again, I think this is going to be a pretty fantastic match. From WWE, was there anything that really stood out to you this week, whether it be Raw, whether it be SmackDown, anything that we might have missed? Because for me, it was really dominated by the Judgment Day, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins storyline, and then what's going on with the Bloodline, whether it's LA Knight or whether it's John Cena lining up to take on those foes. Anything else that stood out to you?
A couple things just with the women. I thought they're getting good attention now on Monday night. I love seeing Nick Aldis in the chaos that's being created on both shows, having him show up on Raw. I mean, I'm not sure I'm down with Rhea Ripley fighting 5 women, but I thought that at least if you're going to have Nia Jax be in the ring, they made her look dominant a little bit, so it's going to be good to see. I just on a quick side note, I just find it interesting the way in which you start seeing all these pictures with Rhea and Dom. It kind of makes you wonder, like, dude, are these guys like into each other like that? I just think they got it kind of maybe. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the flirtatious kind of situation. I think it should be more of the mentoring like Rhea's been doing, like kind of negotiating with other wrestlers, seeing her talk to Drew was sweet backstage. I just think Rhea in that realm with Dom, I don't think plays well to me. And I just think that she needs to be more dominant as opposed to being like, oh, Dom, you know, like, no, kick his ass into gear and let him be a world champion. I think that Dom in the ring every time he steps in has been great. On the other side, on SmackDown, I just think that Kevin Owens is now going to be a bigger star. One Punch dude was great. I also pay attention on the rise. Theory and Grayson Waller have the potential to do some things, and they can make some noise if done creatively well, and I think it's going to be.
What do you think? There was a report that came out. What do you think about the report that I believe it was Sean Ross Sapp announced that WWE has acknowledged that they are piping in the booze for Dominic and that they are turning his microphone down? What do you make of that?
It sounds good. It is interesting because, you know, I don't think you need to, but it is kind of unique television entertainment to see a guy get drowned out by booze. And you don't need to force Dom being a heel. Just do it in the ring. Cost some people some matches, say some things that you're not supposed to say, and keep it moving. Kind of like MJF, but not so cutting. Like, you don't got to be a replica, but you got to be smart. And I think it's kind of artificial, so it kind of cheapens it a little bit. But I think that Dom can create it with his look and his appearance and the shit that he does. So just it's time for him to be a natural heel, not one that's forced down our throats.
Yeah, look, I don't necessarily know if you needed to do it. I thought it was any way you want to cut it. I think Dominic's reaction has been fantastic. I think piping in the booze and turning down his microphone, I don't necessarily know if it was needed, but either way, I think it makes for great television and it's a spectacle. So it's interesting. I don't think I have a problem with it. I'm okay with it. I think I have more of a problem with it, more of a problem with WWE coming out and acknowledging that's what they've been doing, because it takes a little bit of that specialness away from it. But it's what it is. All in all, I think WWE gave us some good programming. Let's transition over to AEW. You talked about it in our introductions. We've had a Hall of Famer show up on AEW. You've got a Hall of Famer on the way out the door in Sting. And they presented Sting with Ric Flair as he made his debut on AEW. What were your thoughts on Ric Flair showing up on AEW?
He looked pretty good. He looked like he was moving. Like, for a man his age, you would think he'd move a little bit stiffer. The man is a little bit fluid. He took his sweet-ass time to get to the ring, which I thought amplified the moment. You know, I love the dirt sheet reactions. I love the ones... Like, there's been a growing gimmick over the last few years where every couple months someone puts out a post that says Tony Khan is buying Impact every couple months. And some of the rumors were Tony Khan bought Impact and gave it to Sting. Tony Khan's going to give AEW a piece to Sting. The reactions online to what the surprise was crazy. Some people talked about Ric Flair. I didn't think they'd do it. I didn't think they'd do it and then create a program. It's just not a one-off. It's going to be a program until March, which I think is perfect. Now, look, does Sting need Ric Flair in his corner to have more attention to it? No. But will it be great that the last match, and if it's done right, if it's done the way the history of wrestling should be done, Ric Flair and Sting should no longer be on television after March together. It's a perfect send-off. It's a closing of the chapter. I think that seeing Shivani, Flair, and Sting was a really great memory for the old-timers that followed WCW. I think it's going to be great. I think Flair in the corner of Sting over the next few months has the opportunity to create some great memories, viral moments, and it'll be great. It has the opportunity to be something very, very special, and it's something further that you understand that sometimes Tony Khan is a mark, but sometimes that allows for some great moments. And for Ric Flair to show up in AEW, while maybe we all thought it would happen, to see it, it was cool. It's Ric Flair. Now you just, please, the only thing that the wrestling community is asking, the IWC, all the podcasters, I think everybody's saying it, do not put Ric Flair in that ring. I don't care if he's dying, if he shows up with 50 videos showing how great he can move around and wrestle. Ric Flair in a suit, gold chains, talking his shit is all we need. You put the man in the ring, I might be out on AEW.
Yeah, look, I don't need to see him wrestle. I find it interesting that he showed up. I find it interesting that he made an appearance. I mean, he was scheduled for an appearance, and then we had the Plane Ride from Hell debut. Next thing you know, everything with Ric Flair was scrapped. And according to Ric Flair, Tony Khan wouldn't even return his calls. So I find it interesting that he did show up. I was a little bit shocked. I was really taken aback that he was there. He looks good. I just don't need to see him in the ring. I don't really know where we go after this. I thought Christian's part in all of this was fantastic, where he was cutting a promo on Ric Flair.
Yes.
Christian is probably doing some of his best work right now, and it's been pretty fantastic. It'll be interesting to see what takes place with Ric Flair. And I agree with you. I don't need to see Sting wrestle anymore after his final match. I don't need to see Ric Flair wrestle ever again. I think we can just kind of move on from those guys. Something that was announced from another future Hall of Famer, from a guy who, in my estimation, is above both Sting and Ric Flair. Chris Jericho hinted at bringing in a heavy hitter. I wanted to kind of get a quick gauge on who you possibly think this could be, because when this announcement was made, he was doing a promo with Renee Paquette, and instantly I started going through my head of all the wrestlers that have been released or all the wrestlers who are free agents.
Correct.
And I'm just kind of going through, running through, and I couldn't really come up with anybody. And then I started thinking, all right, well, who's in AEW who's really being underutilized? And I came up with the Big Show. I came up with Paul White. Chris Jericho and the Big Show did tag before. Paul White has been a little bit vocal about wanting to be utilized in the ring a little bit more. You did see him doing his Captain Insano Man rendition with MJF and Adam Cole when they were on the boat and they were drinking beers together. So is this Paul White, or do you think that it might be somebody else? Where are you at with this?
Yeah,
Who do you think it could be?
Yeah, very wise. I think that you bring back an angle that was done well and in the past and people would gravitate towards. If it's not him, I would do a guy that I think could be benefiting from working with Chris Jericho, and that's Wardlow. I think he's bigger than Hobbs in terms of potential, you could say stronger,
that's true.
Bigger, faster, stronger kind of thing. But, man, I think that Hobbs has been made into a guy that has been now used properly, which is amazing. Good shit. And whatever it is, working with Chris Jericho has done will do a wonder. And this is what AEW is now starting to do, is they're starting to take their mid-card guys and starting to give them a little bit more run in all of these shows. And it's starting to pay off by their importance, by the way that they're looking. And Hobbs is a great character. Wardlow also needs to take a step forward. And now to see this is going to be great. I think it's going to be the Big Show, Paul White, and it'll be fun to see how this plays out in the future. A choke slam from hell, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, and look, I like you tossing in the name of Wardlow. I think that's a fantastic call. I think that's a really good dig by you. It'll be interesting to see who it's going to be. I think the other big thing coming out of Dynamite was, to me, it feels like we're building towards Okada Danielson 2.
Yeah, hell yeah.
We end up having a tag match, and in the end, Okada ends up getting the win, and he's standing over Danielson, who's clutching at his face. And at a certain point, you can see Okada mocking Danielson. You have the entire BCC come out. You've got best friends come out. Hook comes out. Hook and Wheeler Yuta are having a stare down and almost get into a brawl in the middle of the ring. But I think there's this cut of the camera where it's on the ground looking up at Okada, and it's looking at Danielson. Danielson's kind of thriving in pain, holding his face, and Okada is mocking his broken arm and then mocking the fact that his face hurts. And you can see him almost doing like a crybaby, like holding his eye. Does this main event lead us to Okada Danielson 2? Do you want to see Okada Danielson 2? Where are you at as far as your temperature on Okada Danielson 2?
Hell yeah, Okada was an AEW, baby. It was great. It was a Mark's dream. I thought that the pop that he got was amazing. Everybody loves the chain, the coin. The coins dropping is symbolic. It's amazing. man, Okada's just a star. And to hear rumors of AEW pursuing bigger NJPW stars is going to be spectacular. I just think that Okada's great. And you saw the first matchup. Well, now you just have to set the goal that, hey, nobody gets hurt in this match. Please have a good physical, stiff match where you both can continue to work. You know, New Japan Pro Wrestling has been elevated by their working relationships and partnerships, and I think it's been great for everybody involved. So Okada's just a man, dude, and it was great to see him wrestle. And this is an angle that a lot of people do want to see. And oh man, there's no chance it doesn't pay off. It's going to be great.
Yeah, look, I think this is going to be a fantastic match. I think this is, like I said, the build to it. I want to see it. I love watching Okada wrestle. I love watching New Japan wrestlers come over and do their thing. So I'm excited for it. I think it should be pretty fantastic. I think the other thing coming out of Dynamite, MJF is the guy. And you had a couple of interesting stories with MJF. And it really feels like the beginning of the show was built around MJF, and then it kind of petered a little bit. And I think the ratings really back that up. If you're a ratings nerd and you're a ratings geek, you want to go take a look at the ratings. How much is AEW dependent? One, on MJF, and two, at what point do they really have to start to create and establish new stars? It really doesn't feel like they've done a really good job of creating new stars who are in that main event picture. What are your thoughts, I guess, on that, on AEW and the creation of main event guys, and how dependent are they on MJF?
Yeah, they're totally dependent on MJF in terms of big megastars. A lot of good upper mid card. I think you're starting to see the talent develop at the mid card status that potentially could be big guys. You know, Edge and Christian now are coming in and doing their thing. They're older stars, but yeah, you do need to establish younger stars that can do some things. And MJF is doing a great job, I think, of carrying the company and being the biggest popular draw in the company. The big thing that I think people want to know about who's the devil, who's going to be the person that is going to be revealed as that person, the Jay White. And here's the thing that I think is special that maybe goes underrated. You got Jay White who wants the title. You got Samoa Joe who wants the title. You got others that MJF knows want his title. So I think what they've done is they've made it so that AEW's main title is super, super important. And look, as we're talking tonight, Saturday, this podcast should maybe drop maybe on Saturday or Sunday morning. It's going to be MJF versus Kenny Omega. So I think that on television in and of itself is a major announcement that should be reveled and revered. I mean, MJF is a fighting champion with 5-6 top guys wanting it. So I think that the title is done well. MJF is done well. And yeah, I just think that the guys that have been in the ring with them need to do. You need to take their losses or when their feud's done, and continue to build them like a Samoa Joe. And now I can't wait to see what happens in this match. It's a free match, dude. You're getting MJF versus Kenny Omega. So I think that AEW is in that delicate balance of trying to pick who the big stars are while you work in the established stars.
Yeah, look, I think Saturday night's Collision is set to be fantastic. You're right. On free TV, you're getting MJF versus Kenny Omega, which I think looks to be awesome. I wonder if you've already heard Samoa Joe basically throw his hat into to try to help back MJF in a 6-man tag match. I wonder if Kenny Omega after this match throws his name in the hat as well. It'll be interesting to see how MJF kind of builds his team out going forward in his match against the Gun Club. Yep. So we'll see what takes place. Are you ready for some news and notes?
Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
All right, so a lot of stuff came out last week about Vince McMahon and his role in WWE as far as creative goes. And it's official. Vince is officially out. In a follow-up to a report that we discussed 2 weeks ago, where Vince McMahon is now viewed as a figurehead rather than having any real control over WWE creative, a new report sheds more light on what has transpired. And Endeavor CEO Ariel Emanuel reportedly has granted Triple H full creative control of the WWE product rather than Vince McMahon. The report says while Levesque has served as WWE's chief content officer since McMahon's WWE retirement in July of 2022, upon McMahon's return to WWE at the beginning of the year, it had been reported that the 78-year-old once again had final say on the company's product. According to Dave Meltzer, that's no longer the situation, as he explained on Wrestling Observer Radio. Well, he's out of creative. It's a big story because Ariel Emanuel, when they were on the verge of closing the deal and had actually closed the deal in April, did media rounds and said Vince will be in charge of the company. And if me and Vince have a disagreement, it goes the way Vince wants because Vince is the guy. So then the deal went through, and it only went through really about a month ago, and already Vince is out of creative because Ariel Emanuel. So this is the real interesting thing because it's the first time Vince is now in a position that his father was in 1984, when his father had run the company for years and years and years and then was just an employee of Vince Jr. Although he hates that term, Vincent Kennedy McMahon was the guy making all the decisions, and now Vince was, in fact, overruled, even though when he merged the company, he was told that would not happen. It did happen, and it's really an interesting thing, and that the statement when Ariel Emanuel was talking about the reason the stock is down, he mentioned Vince's name specifically. So it's very interesting that I think what is going on here by Vince's power clearly being marginalized, there's no way around that. In a follow-up report posted in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Meltzer noted that Emanuel doesn't plan for McMahon to make creative edits to the WWE product. Meltzer wrote, one person close to the situation said that Emanuel has a vision for how he can use the worldwide notoriety of McMahon, and that the vision doesn't include him micromanaging the weekly television show. Meltzer also explained that McMahon's changes did get in the way of the long-term vision of the creative team at times, despite the alterations sometimes being for the better. Now, a big-time wrestling promotion is changing its name. In this past weekend, Impact Wrestling hosted its Bound for Glory pay-per-view in Chicago. At the end of the show, a major announcement was made. Using a video package, Wrestlers in the Ring, and Scott D'Amore, who announced that Impact Wrestling was going back to TNA Wrestling. In a press release, the third largest wrestling promotion announced that Impact Wrestling is returning to its iconic total nonstop action wrestling name at Hard to Kill. Its first pay-per-view event of 2024, which will originate for the first time ever from the Palms Casino Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada. TNA launched in the summer of 2022 and has long been known for the most innovative professional wrestling company in the world. TNA is known for its high-risk X Division matches, as well as the home of the prestigious Knockouts Division, which is widely regarded as the best women's division in all of pro wrestling. Now, sticking with TNA and a former TNA wrestler, in a new report from House of Wrestling, it was reported that CM Punk was backstage at the October 22nd Impact Wrestling television tapings in Chicago. Per Fightful Select, those close to Punk claimed a few weeks ago that they didn't think he would sign with the company. However, those close to the former AEW star also said that if he woke up one day and just decided he wanted to wrestle Josh Alexander or Motor City Machine Guns, Punk likely could if he wanted. Another person in touch with Punk stated that he would join the promotion under the right circumstances. The report noted that one big hurdle on the outside looking in would be the salary, as CM Punk annually was making 15 to 20 times what a lot of the Impact wrestlers are making right now. Punk's former trainer, Ace Steel, was recently at Impact's Bound for Glory working in a producer role, so there are wolves in the henhouse if Punk does decide to return to TNA. And that's going to do it for this week's Wrestling News and Notes.
Man, interesting. Also, little nugget here. Rumors swirling too as to where Will Ospreay's going to end up when his deal ends up. It's probably going to be either Impact or AEW, with hopefully AEW making the push for the big star to join. And it could
WWE is hot on his tail as well. WWE has a lot of interest in him.
Yes, Will Ospreay, the big coveted free agent. I can't wait to see where he lands. I don't think he needs to head up Impact. You don't want to be the big star in a small pond. yeah, he could be great and be very much featured as a head of a company, but you want to go to AEW. I think that's the best fit. I would love it to see him in WWE. I think the dream matches that you could see would be crazy, but there's always that fear that he would get marginalized because the dude's a superstar, and you don't want him going the way of some characters that have been stars that come over and they don't pop. I think Will Ospreay is a big enough star, and his matches would be spectacular. But I can't wait to see where this shakes out because the man just had the match at Impact that basically blew away Bound for Glory. 5.5, 6-star match, and watch it twice because you'll be entertained by what the hell you saw with Will Ospreay at Bound for Glory. Holy cow. It sucks. I never, ever have ever felt like, man, being a Spartan fucked up my life in any kind of way. It's always been good. I love going to tailgate with college buddies. But, man, when I saw that Will Ospreay was going to be at a smaller crowd in Chicago on the 21st, it was like, fuck. Oh, my God. I could have went there. Could have went and saw Will Ospreay instead of watching the Spartans get their ass kicked. But in the end, Will Ospreay is going to have many, many, many more great memories. You just know he's only 30, 31 years old. So he's got another decade of putting out great matches. Let's see where it eventually shakes out. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSGROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. All great content. Definitely check out Detroit Podcast, the Twitter page. Good follow. People love to debate, rant, and rave. You can see our GIFs that bring up wrestling and tie it into the sports world. All in all, good stuff, guys. Thank you guys so much for supporting our project. Anywhere at all that you listen to your favorite audio content, Spotify, iTunes, Google, the obviously Apple Podcasts, anywhere at all, just type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and we're those guys. You're definitely going to check us out every single week. We look forward to it. Can't wait, cause for next week to see how the build for the Crown Jewel takes place. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to record next week and the latest and greatest episode of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast.